Welcome to Watch It or Don't. I'm Matt with Kat and Dan, and today we'll be reviewing the new gangster film Legend, starring Tom Hardy. It tells the story of the Kray twins, who, to put it in perspective, when people think of the gangsters in America, they think Al Capone. When it comes to London and England, they think the Kray twins. Mm-hmm. They were a huge force in the 60s, and this film was great because we get to see swinging 60s London with the Kray twins in their prime.
And we should mention Tom Hardy plays both twins.
Both twins.
Ronnie and Reggie.
Mm-hmm. And there is a previous film called The Krays, which you should see if you get the chance. But this is a new take on it where Tom Hardy plays both roles.
Yeah. It's directed by Brian Helgeland. He's probably still most famous for writing L.A. Confidential. He won an Oscar for that. Mm-hmm. Not the most exciting director in the world, but he's been around.
Right.
Tom Hardy is the reason to see this movie.
Mm-hmm.
Ronnie and Reggie Kray are both gangsters, but they're very different.
Very different.
Reggie Kray is more of the polished businessman kind of gangster.
He's what you would expect from a gangster.
Right. He goes about his business. He's very proper.
Mm-hmm.
Ronnie Kray is a little insane.
A loose cannon, if you will.
They call him a loose cannon. He has some mental issues. And Tom Hardy's performance really sells how different these characters are, but also how they're kind of linked in a way.
Right.
And it is cool how they filmed both of them together.
And there was no cheap tricks. I was really worried there was going to be a lot of, weird cuts, but I was actually pretty impressed with that.
Yeah, I actually read an interview about how the director wanted Tom Hardy for Reggie, the more proper role, and Tom Hardy read the script and said, "No, I want to be Ronnie." He thought that was a more interesting role. And they made a compromise. He just did both. So
it is the more interesting role. I will give him that. And
I think if you
playing
didn't
both
know
is better.
Going into it, you wouldn't realize that. I mean, you can tell Tom Hardy's playing both because you can recognize Tom Hardy. But other than that, you wouldn't think that it's the same person playing both roles because they're so different.
Right. Both characters are almost polar opposite.
And I think Tom Hardy's one of the best actors out there today. He's had a heck of a year already, just with Mad Max, this, and The Revenant coming out.
And people talked about him playing Bond, and I wasn't sure, but seeing him in the tux of the 60s,
you're right.
He seemed the most Bondish I'd ever seen.
So let's talk about the rest of the movie.
Sure.
This is, it's trying to be a gangster epic. It's spanning a couple of years.
It definitely has the length of a gangster epic.
Kind of chronicling the rise and fall
of
their crime empire, so to say. It, for some reason, just doesn't pick up the momentum it needs to really be that long epic about these people.
I mean, it is long, I will give it that, but they choose to pace it in a weird way. It almost is unnecessarily long.
I will say Emily Browning plays the love interest of Reggie, and she ends up being his wife. I think she's fine in this. I just wish she's in this movie a lot. A lot of the movie is centered on their relationship, which is a little interesting. But they don't really give her a lot to do, other than kind of being the gangster's wife, kind of trying to pull him straight and trying to get him out of the big arena of the mafia kind of thing. And then
which is sort of cliche.
And then it just doesn't really build into the movie very well.
Right. Well, first you think it's kind of going to be from her perspective because she narrates parts of it throughout the whole movie. There's just blurbs where she'll narrate it. And so you think it's supposed to be from her perspective to a certain extent, but...
It's really not.
We don't really care about her.
I don't care about her. I'm done.
It really should be about them.
The brother dynamic in this is interesting, and that's the best part of the movie.
Right.
And they do center on it. I just wish they had built towards that the entire way through.
Right.
The last 20 minutes or so is better. It shows some momentum in that regard, but overall, it's very slowly paced and just wasn't that exciting.
Right?
Which is what you don't want for this kind of movie.
Right.
I feel like the whole movie was a lot of I like it, but. I was like, I like this music, but it's kind of weirdly placed in the movie, and I like the actors in it, but they aren't focusing enough on certain ones, or I like the characters, but I'm not in love with them. It's a lot of I like this, but I wish that this.
Yeah. I had pretty high expectations for this, and I'm kind of let down a little. Maybe my expectations were a little high, but Tom Hardy does an amazing job.
Right.
I think he really does steal the film.
That's the reason to see this movie.
It is.
That's the only reason, really. I mean, if you put lesser actors in this, it'd just be kind of a skip it. And actually, if you're going to see this, maybe wait till it's on DVD so you can have the subtitles.
Right, that's another very important thing.
They're doing East London accents, which are very tricky to understand.
Yes.
You do catch on eventually, but it's tricky.
You train your ear throughout the movie to pick up on what exactly they're saying.
Let's jump into ratings.
Sure.
Over here. I'm giving this movie a 6.6 out of 10. I enjoyed Tom Hardy's performances, plural. They were great. But in the end, this kind of felt like, for me, a little bit like Black Mass. It had a lot of potential and a lot of interesting story parts that just didn't build to the right conclusion. It just wasn't very enjoyable to watch.
Sure. Kat?
I think I'd give it a C-. I liked it enough. Like, I didn't regret seeing it, and I, like, enjoyed the movie as I was watching it. And it made me want to learn more about the Kray twins because I didn't know anything about the story beforehand. But I didn't love it, so I give it a C-.
I gotcha. I'm going to give it a 3 out of 5 stars. I had super high expectations. I wish I could give it 4, but it just, I don't know. I feel like I do know a little bit more of the history with them.
Yeah, you do.
And they paced it strange. Like, honestly, the wife's an interesting character, but she carries the movie too much, in my opinion, because the movie needs to be about the twins. And they kind of drifted from that. Okay. If it had stuck to that, I think it would have been better. And I do highly suggest you see The Krays, which is Krays.
And that came out
it's
in
a
like
great
the
film.
80s?
I want to say, and I think it's on Netflix. That's where I first saw it. It's great.
Well, anyway, Legend is out in theaters, coming out soon here. So be sure to subscribe for more content, and we will see you next time.